Welcome to the Books and Beer Book Club, coming to you from Sursus Brewing Company in Columbus, Wisconsin. We're a different kind of book club, only reading books by authors who can visit us in person or via Zoom for the discussion. We've been going strong since 2015, meeting nearly every month. We're now making these fun and informative discussions available to you on video. I'm your host, Valerie Beal. I'm an author myself, and I enjoy interviewing our guest authors and facilitating the questions from our readers both in person and on Zoom. We hope you enjoy this replay. To join us live, please check out our schedule on our Facebook page at Books and Beer Columbus.
So here we are again. Thank you all for coming. If I end up calling TK, aka Tracy, if I end up calling her Katie, that's also her other name. So if this happens, don't think I've lost my mind and I've forgotten. Ages ago, we worked in the same place and then bumped into each other at a book event and we're like, wait, you wrote a book and then wait, you're writing books and what are you doing here? Because the job we had nothing to do with writing books. It was a fun, catch up, right? To see each other again. Welcome. And I'm so glad that you're here. It's been really fun just lately catching up with you and doing projects with you. We have a podcast that we're called the Misses. And it's reading, writing, and roaming around Wisconsin, the Midwest, and beyond. And I think it's taken me 5 episodes to actually get that, to spit that out. It's okay without having to stop and then splice 2 pieces together for the title. So yeah, it's good. We have a good time, chatting things and supporting each other's work too, which has been really fun. Important. It is. Yes, it is. Well, I know the answer to this question. Nobody else here knows how you came about, the route, to this writing, to your stories, because when I knew you, you were writing communications style, press release type thing. Yes. So you were a writer. Yes. And you have a degree in communications, but lots of stuff happened between then and now. So have at it.
Well, thank you very much, Val. You're a sweetheart. And I knew that when I met Val. She was always this way. She was always bubbly and kind and warm. So
are you sure? Yes.
Yes.
I know there were days at that job.
Well,
maybe I wasn't, maybe to you I was nice, but there were other people I wasn't.
So, but the book community in Wisconsin is far better off by having you with us. So thank you very much for having me. And I'm delighted to be here. Thank you for coming, and spending time for an hour to talk about books and writing and, my love of the state. I started out in communications and public relations and went through a life change in my 40s. I got divorced. And I said, well, okay, now what? So I went back to school and got a master's because I loved to write and I loved to teach. So I got a master's degree. I started teaching college writing, which I loved to do for 10 or so years. And then I wanted to perfect my craft. So I started going to events and I started taking classes about creative writing. And I started to think about writing a novel. And I tried a few of them and I went to classes and submitted pages and got everything redlined and, awful. But it was good feedback, right? It was what I needed to protect my craft. So fast forward a little bit, I'm teaching college, COVID hits. My husband and I, right before it happened, had purchased a fixer-upper house in the middle of nowhere, rural Waukesha County, middle of nowhere. And I walked into the backyard and I said, I can start writing my books here. So I started writing and I came up with the Backyard Model Mysteries about a woman who worked in New York City, came home and opened a craft mall in her small town. And so I wrote this book during COVID on my hands and knees with a bad back. So I was literally bent over a footstool typing away. And so it came out last November. That's how long it took me by the time I finished the manuscript, got it edited. Books can take a while to get finished. But I love it, and I'm so glad that you're here to talk about it. And then Model Wave, like I said, came out on Tuesday. So I decided after college teaching, I basically retired and said, now's the time to start writing novels full time. So essentially, this is a second career for me. So. And one you love. And one that I love. And now you all know my secret code name of Kate, right? So now you're in the 12.
Yeah.
It's right. It's right.
Well, and I didn't know that you went by your middle name the entire time. I knew you before,
Yes,
like, yeah,
Yeah.
reconnecting with you.
yeah,
So I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Like with your email. I'm like, your email is, wait, who?
yeah.
So we were kind of laughing about that, but I do catch myself though, at times when I'm trying to do like, ask the question on the
Yeah.
podcast, I'm like, no, of course, my husband also knows you, and so then I will say, oh, something about Tracy, and he's like, I'm like, Katie, okay, he's like, got it. So, I mean, you know, it's cool to have so many options.
Yeah, sort of.
It's all good. I have to tell you, and you've heard this compliment from me before, but there are very few authors that make me laugh out loud like this.
Thank you.
So I am a big fan of Janet Ivanovich, who writes the Stephanie Plum, you know, Bounty Hunter series, which are madcap, and there's always like the grandma running around with like the pistol in her purse, stealing all the cookies at the viewings of whatever dead neighbor, just whatever. It's just like there's madcap things that happen, but I always end up waking my husband up, say me late at night when I read those books, and now I wake him up when I read your books. And he's like, what? Like, cut it out. Like, you know.
The internal narratives.
Oh my God, they're just so funny. And part of it is to me, the Wisconsin isms, which I think are so fun. I do think those can translate for people though. I don't think you have to be from Wisconsin to enjoy the Wisconsin isms, right? No.
And,
I don't think so.
you know, I like to say I write books for readers who want to laugh and escape.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, there's no bad language, you know, they're true cozies, right? And there are, you know, important themes going on, like friendship and addiction, and there are some things that are treated, you know, seriously in the book. And then of course solving a crime. But the main character definitely has a sense of humor, and then her cousin Lou basically is her, you know, the foil for everything, and that's really her, you know, her counter personality, right? But I have to read you this. I just got a review.
You're gonna read a view review?
Yeah, from
Whoa.
and
Do tell.
I,
Wait, is it good or bad?
no, it's good.
Okay. I thought, you know, is it like one of those moments where we
No.
go buy you a drink or?
Oh my God, it's time to drink. So I had to laugh at this review about what this writer wrote. He said, its Battle Wave is filled with good-natured upcountry wackiness.
Upcountry wackiness.
You know, she goes up north, right?
I love
Good-natured upcountry wackiness.
wackiness.
And then this one, I just had to laugh. I laughed out loud. Do not read this book hungry. How the characters remain so physically alluring amidst the avalanche of ice cream sundaes, milkshake, bratwurst, fried cheese curds, chocolates, and booze is a mystery as big as the murder.
It's booze.
Right? It's like,
Like booze.
well, that's fabulous. I mean, I love that review.
Awesome.
And then he said something about it's close to as perfect a cozy mystery boat book as you're likely to find.
Oh, what a
I'll take it.
beautiful.
Yeah, I was like, okay, there's the quote.
That's wonderful. Yeah, when they give you a nice quote, like it's
Yeah.
the same quote like that. I mean, who doesn't love a good custard first date?
Yeah. It lands in your lap.
And the spoon stuck in her hair. I don't know. That made me laugh. I did laugh at that.
I did copy down the recipe.
Oh,
I've been done it.
I loved, and then this one's got a carrot muffin recipe in it.
Oh, fun.
That is a go-to for me. Yes.
Well, and so let me ask you this. Why cozy?
Why cozy? What do you all read? Do you read mysteries?
A lot of,
Mysteries?
yeah, a lot
Do you
of,
like the thriller, kind of scarier side, twisty ones, or do you like the more calm, small town?
both.
I like
Both? You like them
I
both?
think it's fun to switch off.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would say I like a little bit of a twisty kind of, a little more tension in it. So some cozies not a lot, I have a lot of that. But I've always liked the small town. I've always liked a main character who is strong and can solve her own problems. And I've always liked bringing in the Wisconsin element to stories. Because I write what I like to read. So I love this state, I've been through my life, I love our culture, I love how funny we are, I love the food that we eat. So I wanted to bring that into cozy mysteries. Because I just think mysteries are fun to read. I like to solve the crime at the end. And I like that the world returns to order at the end, right?
Right.
You start out with order and then things go bad. And then things come back and the bad guy gets his, comeuppance, and then the world returns to the order. So that's what I prefer to read, so that's what I read.
Well, and they're satisfying in that way. I mean, I'm a fan of, is it Jodi Picoult, whose books don't always,
Yeah.
I mean, and they resolve things, but they're not like always happy. And you can only read so much of that, right? I mean, the world is already hard enough.
The world, yes,
So it's kind of nice to read something that's amusing,
yes.
but that pulls you through because we clearly don't know who the villains are immediately. And you've got some excellent other candidates for your villains always. So, I mean, it's fun. It's a fun read.
Oh,
That way. So,
but I try to bring in unusual weapons, like in this. In this one, there may or may not be a frozen roll of dough that ends up as a weapon. I'm not going to
hey,
say.
that's like a baseball bat at that point.
Yes.
Well, I mean, have you ever heard of like there was a book I read once where they couldn't figure it out and someone had gotten killed by an icicle and it had melted and they couldn't figure out what the wound was made by. And I was like, huh.
Sounds like a
So frozen dough?
Yeah, frozen dough. Try testing that for DNA. You're just gonna find vanilla, butter, eggs. That joke may or may not be in the book. I don't want to give it away.
Oh my gosh, it's too funny. So, tell me, was Model Suspect in the very first book you wrote?
Yes, the first one that was published. I have other manuscripts that didn't see the light of day, but
So you've written those prior to
Yes.
this one?
Yes.
Have those permanently like shelved, or are they just
No.
on temporary shelf?
it's temporary. That one actually, the one that's temporarily shelved takes place in the 80s and takes place in Mineral Point and involves community theater.
Ah,
And so I have that one. I just have not had time to get to it.
to finish it up.
Yeah, to
Just
revise. It needs
kind of revising. Okay. You've got Model Suspect, which was the last fall.
Model Suspect was Christmas holiday. Model Wave is the summer beach read, and then Model Ghost will be out in October. So that
And then we just learned at dinner what the fourth book's about, potentially.
Model Rescue. It'll be she assists a billionaire setting up a horse rescue. So
Is that gonna be, are you gonna go back and forth to this cabin now and like in Cinnamon, or are we done with, we're gonna go back to
no,
Cinnamon?
we're gonna
aren't
be
we?
back in we'll be back in Sydney.
Okay, good. I was worried about that. I wanted to go
She
back.
owns a craft mill in Cinnamon. Everybody artists and that. She's got to come back, and a friend of mine owns a craft mill not too far from me. If you've ever been down to Genesee Depot,
Yeah.
there's, oh my gosh, it's the best little strip of village you've ever been to. So you drive in, there's a fabulous bakery, there's a wonderful little craft mall, there's a bookstore, there's a fabulous restaurant called the Cornerstone. Is it the Cornerstone Inn?
Nice.
There's a high-end restaurant called the Union House.
Oh, I've heard of that. Yeah.
And then
Okay,
there's
okay.
a pottery studio. And then at the end of the street is 10 Chimneys where you can take a tour
Oh.
and go to the gift shop. All in one square.
And so remind me, 10 Chimneys Fontaine,
Lunch Fontana.
yeah.
It is the most fun afternoon you're going to have in a tiny town. Like one little
Field
strip.
Let's go. We should do that.
Yeah.
We should do it. We'll get Saturdays and get a
Yeah.
little minibus.
Oh,
Focus.
Genesee Depot. And then you can have dinner at Union House. We have 2 places for choices for dinner. And then a snack at the bakery, Sally's. Oh, so good.
It
Well,
could be fun.
And then a little shopping excursion to the craft mall that's there. But it's worth a visit. And then, so my friend owns this little craft shop.
It's
not little.
Did you get lots of details from her?
Yes, yes, yes. I go in there and I see the artists and their little booths, and that was my inspiration for the craft mall that she owned. Because I thought, oh my goodness, you're working with artists, all the different personalities, and they, some of them are suspects, some not. So I just thought that what a great place, what a great idea, because you can use all these artists.
And what a great murder weapon as well in that.
Anything, right? Yeah,
But I mean the door.
oh yeah.
Glad of it. Actually, she really wasn't, but they did her in.
Yeah,
so-
did her in.
You have other books that are not mysteries.
Yes,
Just
well,
roll-
manuscript.
Manuscript. And is that the romance side of things?
I have a,
Would you like to tell us about that?
sure, I have one that what they call is you send it on submission to publishers. And this one is a romantic, paranormal, romantic comedy. And it is about Cupid. And he is so frustrated with the modern state of romance that he says, okay, I'm leaving Mount Olympus. I'm going to go live in a small town and open up a matchmaking service so I can talk to people one-on-one. And things go bad from there. They go well at first, but after, you know, a little while, they start going bad. Again, it's a comedy, right? It's meant to make people laugh and think. And the theme of that, all of these always have a theme. The theme of that paranormal romance is know thyself. Because, right, isn't that the biggest problem when you run into trying to find a partner is that maybe you don't know yourself as well as you should. So he's trying to say, look, don't look outwardly. Don't think the app is going to solve your problem. Let's talk about what you are as a person and how well do you know yourself. So that's really the theme of it, and that's how he works with his clients.
I remember that.
Yeah, no, that one hopefully that'll be out. But
So I want to talk to you a little bit about your mystery writing process, how you approach mystery. Because I'm curious, I mean, there's like now that I've got one under my belt, right? And I kind of did it wrong. Like my process was a little monkey and I fixed it. I think I'll be better the second time around in how I approach it. Because it takes a lot of effort to get all those red herrings right and to get you know, the clues in the right places and things like that. But so I'm curious, one, do you kind of have all that thought out ahead? Like you know who your villain is.
Yeah.
But or do you like leave it a little loose so that you can let yourself right to the conclusion? Like you know the villain. Which way do you approach it?
that's a very good question. Has anyone here tried to write? Are any writers here? No? No? Okay.
So
They all have
writers. I mean, Julia and Sharon
Yeah.
obviously are.
You know, I through a lot of trial and error. And I went to school. I went to school. It took me 10 years, right? But I learned that I liked a 4-act structure rather than 3.
Okay.
You know, I do a 4.
So explain the 4.
The 4 is you start out with what they call an inciting incident. So something happens, and this is especially true in mysteries, commercial or genre. You start off with the inciting incident. Somebody's killed or something happens drastically, right? And a lot of movies do it this way too. So something drastic happens. And then you move up to a first point of no return. Something's going to happen that changes the direction. And then you're going to move through the midpoint, then you're going to go to that final second point of no return, right? And that's very close to the climax. You know, your main character's going to struggle. Things are going to happen bad for her, and then you're going to hit the reveal. The bad guy is going to be revealed, right? And then you have the falling off action. So I know that structure when I start. I also usually have a pretty strong outline. I know who my main character is. I know probably the antagonist. I know who's going to commit the crime. And then you always want to have that B plot, right? You have your A plot, which is to solve the mystery. And then the B plot, for example, here it was all the parties she goes to. So she goes to
The holidays.
right.
In Wisconsin.
And what I like to do is send my character to parties. So she goes to Midwinter's night at the library, and she goes to the mayor's race where they bet on the racing dolls. And then she goes to the charity ball, you know, in the small town. And so, you know, what better way to have things happen to your main character than to have parties and, you know, events happen, right? So that's how I move through that center section, what they call the messy middle. And so I've learned to solve that by giving her parties to go to or games, you know, and this one she goes to what they call the delivery games. So she goes up north and her wonderful friend, who's a delivery guy, Stephen, he has to compete in basically the Olympics of delivery.
Which is harder up north.
Yes. So he goes like the theme, you know, boxing without gloves, you know, you use real boxes. And then they have
That's funny. That's right.
they have a delivery competition with no GPS. They have water skiing with on cardboard skis. You know, it's everything to do with boxes and delivery people.
What was that?
I don't know. A long time. It took me, a long time to get to this point. I'm just putting it on the page.
So when you have your outline, do you have each of these main beats or points
Yes.
figured out? You know what those are?
Yeah, I knew, and for example, for Model Way, I knew she was gonna go to the delivery games. I knew that there was gonna be games involving cardboard. I knew that highlighting delivery people was gonna be a theme in the book, because we were talking about this earlier at dinner time. Because I feel like delivery people are the modern knights of the road, and they need a literary moment.
Genetics.
Yes. I mean, they come to our houses like Santa and they bring things to us. And I just think, what would we do without them? So I'm like, I'm gonna write books about them and include them in my
This is a
book.
really good point. What
Yes.
would we do with those? I mean, we do have to pay the credit card at the end of the month,
Right,
but
well-
what would we do with them?
There's that. So that's my B subplot is the delivery people.
I think those B subplots are sometimes just so much fun and they keep us entertained as writers too.
Yes,
Have you ever had too many little subplots that you had
Yes.
to pull up?
yes.
Did you keep them? Like,
I
did you keep,
put
like,
them in a storage folder, on my computer, but
I
I
was
was they, I don't know, I could put it like deleted scenes or something like a director's cut. I could
Okay.
probably do that.
You could. People would be excited. You could
Yeah.
use it as the special sign up
Oh, there you go.
for like an email list and say
Yeah.
you'll get all my deleted scenes if you sign up for me.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Could do that.
It's kind of-
Oh, recipes. I could do recipes too. And everything, those.
Well, that's another thing with post-its, right? They usually involve there's often a
Puzzles or knitting or
Yeah.
food or coffee.
right.
Yeah, there's usually some kind of element like that.
That works.
Yeah.
Do you like to cook?
I like to bake. I like to bake. I have a couple of go-to baking, but I'm not even.
That's me too. I would prefer to bake versus like other foods.
And I figured this out about myself as I wrote more, and I thought, okay, what is it? Why am I so attracted to impressionist paintings,
Oh, yes.
flower shops, and bakeries? Right? It's the color. It's all the color
It
and
is
the
colors.
sparkle, and I figured that about myself. And I try to go more to flower shops and look at paintings versus bakeries because there's less calories
That's right.
in the flower shops.
Well, and if museums require walking,
Yes.
then you can reward yourself
Yes.
with, a baked item, like for an outing.
Throw it out.
You probably read a lot of mysteries growing up,
Yes.
and were you like the Nancy Drew, Trixie Belden? Like, what were your go-to mysteries as a kid?
Yes, the Nancy Drews,
Yeah.
the Walter Farley, Black Stallion books.
Oh, right.
Yes.
Yes.
And I just always was a reader. I remember walking into the library and being thrilled to be able to go check out books and read books. And I think that's kind of true among writers. We're pretty voracious readers.
Usually, I was on a panel once though, where someone was in the front row and they were trying to figure out why the clock wasn't working. And somebody else on the panel said, "Do you read thrillers?" And they're like, "I don't read at all." And we all went like this. It was like, who was gonna take that question? Because we were like, you should probably read.
Yeah.
That same panel was real weird because somebody said, "We're having a lot of trouble and I'm getting some edits back that say I don't use enough verbs." Verbs. And I was like,
Kind of important for a
I
science.
said,
Yeah.
"You need verbs." I was just thinking it was the weirdest. This was a great day and we hadn't been drinking. It was a very weird panel discussion. And we were just like, yeah, verbs are good.
Yeah.
Read books,
Yeah.
use verbs. Good.
Yeah.
I don't remember what my question was.
Okay.
I think I was asking what you were.
What I read. Yes, I used to love to read, always loved mysteries, loved the Nancy Drews, was fascinated by just solving the crime. That always drew me in. But the book that really changed my writing life was the James Harriet's All Creatures Great and Small books.
Yes.
Because I love animals. I grew up riding horses, and when you could read about, my very first job was in a veterinary clinic cleaning cages. I'd stop there after school and I could just be around the animals, But when I read that book and it was about treating animals, going on vet calls, and he was so funny. I mean, he made every little vignette, every story was just it was his choice of word. It was a choice of a verb. There's one phrase he says he tobogganed across. He was in his seat and he didn't toboggan into the windscreen, windshield, right? Windscreen. And I laughed and laughed at the word tobogganing, right? Instead of sliding, he said tobogganing. And I just thought, oh my goodness, what a funny way, what a wonderful way it has with words. And then P.G. Wodehouse, the British writer P.G. Wodehouse, I read and read and read those over and over because it's just such a funny way of describing things. And so those were the two writers who really, and then William Shakespeare, really influenced me more than anything that I ever read. Well, I read this.
Well, and a lot of the, I mean, you have some really fun phraseology as well. And do you go back? I mean, does that come out naturally, or do you layer that in?
Most of the time, it just comes out naturally, and I write very early. I write very in the morning. I write from like 4 a.m. to 10-ish in the morning, usually 5 or 6 days a week. Yeah. And that's when my brain is the freshest, and I sit there and watch the sunrise in my backyard, and it just comes to me, most of the time. I usually write about 500 words a day or so, sometimes more, sometimes 1,000, sometimes 1,200. But that's pretty much that precious time for me that my brain works.
Nobody's going to interrupt you at that time.
Nobody interrupts.
I won't be interrupting you at that time. She texts me at 7. I'm like, dude. I go to bed at like 1 or 2 because I'm late. So we've got kind of flip schedules. Yeah. So, but I mean, if I have insomnia, I just know who to call.
Yes, I'll be waiting.
But we do joke about that because I'll take the sunset pictures. I say you can follow her Instagram for the sunrise pictures. So really, really great, actually.
Yeah, my Instagram is the backyard model, and usually always I can show. We have the backyard. Our backyard usually has really beautiful sunrises. So I usually try to post those as often as I can.
So you are, yes.
And I want everybody else to be awake too.
But the thing too, we talk about writing process a lot. You've got to protect that writing time.
Yeah. And
you have to figure out when it is that you are the most productive and when you're the freshest. And I am in the morning as well, just later start. That's a hard thing too, because I mean you guys are redoing your house, and and now with books out, now you've got the marketing mode going on. Yes. So are you still able to find that writing time, or are you pretty religious about keeping that schedule?
Yeah. Anybody else a morning person in here? No?
Yeah.
I'm religious. Everything. My husband's asleep. Yeah. And I can, and I treat it like work. I have my coffee and I stretch a little bit and move around a little. Take some celery juice. I have celery juice anyway, and then it's okay. And I can't distract. It's easy to get on your phone and get distracted.
Oh God, the social media time's up.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Don't do it. Don't open it.
That's exactly what I think of myself. Don't.
Well, and that's part of it too, like just turning off, like our computers, like the setting when you get like a computer is always like all the chimes and the bells and the thing, like you don't need to know when the email comes in, it'll still be there in an hour.
Yes.
I mean, so some days I feel like I'm playing like whack-a-mole with like all the emails and notifications and things. All that can go. That stuff can wait. You can do your 3-4 hours of writing
and we grew up without that.
Yeah.
Right? Grew up without that kind of distraction in our lives, and so it's taking me a lot. Everything's silenced.
Yes.
I have to silence it all, and just kind of, and that's very much so in cozy mysteries. One of the techniques I can use. Another reason why I write it in Wisconsin is I can always put them in a small town where the service goes down, right?
Yeah.
Or the weather.
Bad Wi-Fi
takes it out. There's going to be a thunderstorm, a snowstorm. Oh no, the Wi-Fi's all down. I can't get a hold of anyone. The power's out.
This week we had,
it's another. I mean, I love the state. I love the people. I love the culture. I love the food. I love the Green Bay Packers. But the weather really works in and out. So
it's true. Very true.
Yes.
I know. Yeah. So you do that. Well, I haven't read all the way through Metal Wave yet. You do have a snowstorm in the other, right? Yeah.
Thunderstorm in this, snowstorm in that.
That's Wisconsin. Right. Wait 5 minutes. The weather will be different.
Exactly.
Right?
You don't like the weather
apart, right? Yep. We're talking about your writing process. How far ahead are you gonna do you plan these out? Like if you've got this book, so I know your writing model goes right now for the fall.
Right.
How close are you to being done with that? When is your goal date for being done with that?
July 1.
So
because by the time
5 months in advance.
Right.
4, 5.
Yeah.
3.
Yeah.
I guess.
August, September, yeah,
Yeah.
3 now.
I can count.
I know.
Whatever.
But by the time you have it proofread and edited, you're bumping up against your deadline because the cover's finished, and that. But when you get your editor involved in your beta readers and that, it takes a while. That's tight.
It does. Yeah, that is tight. That is tight for October, isn't it? And it's early October for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
So
but that's what the things you learn as you do this, right? And then by the time you know your characters, like for the third one, you know who's going to come in. Oh, I really need to talk to Lou, or I really need to talk to the detective from Madison. You can bring them in and they slide into your narrative a little more easily because you know them. They become like your friends. And
they do.
They do. And I've heard other authors talk about this, and please don't think I'm weird, but they say things to you, like you're trying to write dialogue, and I try to write really tight, funny dialogue. And for example, Cousin Lou, she comes into the page and starts talking now. And I'm like, oh yeah, that sounds like her. And then type away and she'll say a joke or the way she phrases things. And I'm like, where did that come from? And it's just because she lives in my head and you just bring them out when you need them, And I never really experienced that until I started writing full time and knew these characters. Like the Cupid story I was talking about. When he comes in, he's modeled after actually a real person who I know, who I will not name. But I see.
We do.
No, exactly.
But can't edit it out.
No, you already know my secret code, and that's my real name. I'm not going to get the other one. No, I can hear him talking when I write this particular character's voice, and when he responds, and that. I see him very well, and he just embodies that character. I hear his voice, I hear his tone of voice, and it's just it's how you work and write people on the page. I think.
Right.
Do you know your character?
Yeah, I do. And in fact, well, it's been a while now since I have written in the series that's out, and I need to add to that series.
Yes.
And I go back and I'm like, yeah, I like these people, like they're real,
Yes.
and they're clearly sad. But yeah, and so even though I think I always have some affection for them, but so the mystery, I started to think about how could I like them. How can I turn this into a series? Because I want to hang out with them.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So
even the bad guy in Model Suspect, I was like, I'm going to have her go talk to him if she needs to solve another crime. Because he's put away, right? He's locked up, but I can still use him in some way.
Sure.
So, yeah.
It's kind of an odd thing. And I used to joke about, because this is a pretty small town. I'd say if you see me actually talking at the stoplight, I'm probably not on Bluetooth. I'm probably talking to myself. And I'm working out dialogue with characters or something.
Yeah.
Because, although people wouldn't know, they think you're on the phone.
Right. Yeah. And then Agatha Christie, right? She said the best way to write a novel is to do the dishes. Because you're away from the page, you're away from the computer, and you're thinking about other things. So you're using your hands, you're watching TV, and like, oh, right, that's what I could say, or there's the plot twist I was looking for.
Well, and you do run into those problems where you have to stop, and it comes to you weirdly, right?
Yes.
So right. So get out, do something different, and that's like what we'll tell people too that are doing writing. Go do something completely opposite, away from story. Go, do some sport or
I go for a walk.
Yeah,
I go for a walk down the streets.
And you just start to noodle it. Your brain helps you.
Yes.
Your brain, if you give it the space, it'll help you figure it out. It's all there. It's just you gotta.
Well, I have another friend of mine who's writing, and she's writing something right now, and she's convinced that the story already exists in her subconscious, and because she's been thinking about it for a number of years. She knows what she wants to do. She needs to do a little more research. But she's like, it's in my subconscious. I need to just channel it down to the paper. And she doesn't use a plot. She doesn't do any outlines. And she's a dynamite writer, just completely different from the way I do it. But she just thinks about it, reads, research, and then writes.
Well, you probably have all kinds of backstory information in your head, if even not on paper, for your characters that's never been in books yet.
Oh yeah,
right. So at one point after my first book was out, somebody asked me, they wanted more of the historical characters. and what happened to them. And I'm like, oh yeah, I know their whole story. Like, sure, I can do that for you. You know, but it's weird what you create, put your file away.
Right.
You're now partway through the third book. How are you organizing your character?
Oh, I write in a software called Scrivener.
Ooh, tell us about Scrivener, because I hear people talk about it and I don't really understand it, but people that use it love it.
Yeah, it's a, you know, you can write in Word. Some people do and they're fine. Some people write in Google Docs. I write in a software called Scrivener, and it lets you, it basically, you know, you've seen authors put their notes like on 3x5 cards, and they put them on the wall and they move it all around, you know. Scrivener lets you do that just in a software form on your computer, like on chapter 3, and I think, oh, you know, that really needs to move down to be chapter 6, and chapter 1 isn't quite there, I'm going to just store that over here, and it lets you do all that kind of storage.
So it's really visual.
Yes, it's very visual, and it keeps you very organized. And then when you want to compile it, you can compile it in a Word document, you can compile it in something ready for paperback.
Oh, it'll format.
It'll format, right.
So it's Scrivener, Scrivener.
I just spell it.
It's with a V.
Scrivener.
Scrivener.
And then I think it's the website was like Coffee and Lattes or something. Latte literature, maybe. It's not Scrivener.com. It's like lattes and literature or something.
So did you try to use Word before this?
I tried to use Word, and
But you like
that was back in another era. I didn't get it far.
You like this?
I do. I love it. I love it.
Do you format the interior of your own books?
Now I do.
And you use Vellum?
I use Vellum. What they call Vellum for that. It's very easy, very user friendly, and I can almost use it like Scrivener, but I still go back to my Scrivener first and then go back.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Do we have questions? Do you have a question?
When you're writing your books, do you think about the readers and how to pick them up?
Yes.
That?
That's like the best question ever.
So the question is, as she's writing that book for those on Zoom, whether how you think about, do you think about your readers?
I think about them all the time, and in a number of different ways, because I think about what does the reader want from me at this time, not what do I want to put on the page, but what does the reader want? So I try to move myself around to that point of view, number one. And number two, if I get stuck, writer's block, right? I'll say, wait a minute, what does the reader need from me right now? How can I serve the reader in a funny way, in an interesting way? Can I move them into a different room? Can I take them to a different town? Can I tell them something new about Wisconsin? So I think about the reader a lot, and that's what made me the best writer I can be, I think, is by always saying, okay, wait a minute, what can I give the reader? What does the reader need from me? So that is, in addition to making people laugh, that's what I want to do, is entertain the reader and make sure they're satisfied.
Well, and we do learn stuff. I mean, I think it'd be interesting. I mean, clearly we're sitting here in Wisconsin. I would love to hear from someone who lives like in a big city in another state who reads this and see what they think of it.
Well, I think we've got them.
Well, is this guy?
Reader review.
Yes.
Right?
But you know what I mean? It'd be really fun to take like a city girl and say, hey, what do you think of it? Maybe not somebody from Illinois, but
yes. Well, in the reader review, the other comment he made was, we're in Model Wave. We're often running in a description of Northwood's life is precisely described as you're likely to find this side of Northwestern University's Department of Anthropology. I wish you would have said UW-Madison, you know, but I'll take Northwestern.
Do you think maybe this person was from Illinois? I'm not saying that because we get so many visitors from Illinois.
No, I
didn't mean anything bad with that. Sorry, Sharon. I'm sorry.
No, I think they were. But I heat it up a little bit on our friends to the south of us. I mean, I do. Come on.
Well, I mean, you can't like be in your fake Minocqua and not
not take on, the Chicago people. I mean, I have to. But it's friendly.
We all have friends.
It's friendly
in Chicago, right?
Right.
You do.
So
Sharon didn't take
those of us in Chicago know all about small towns too.
Oh, yes, you do. Yes, most people in Chicago probably have lots of experience with other small towns.
Yes.
Right?
I grew up in the Chicago suburbs in a place that still has a farm in the middle of the town. So,
Oh, very funny.
We
That's
would love that town.
interesting. That's
Mhm.
perfect. We sort of
Yeah.
have here too. That's another point of contention.
yeah, it was a village at the time, and Wagner Farm was the farm, and now it's the Wagner Farm Museum or something like that, but it's still there. So we could drive out not very far, and it was all farms and um, vegetable stands and all that kind of thing. So but then my grandparents lived in the city. I was born in the city, so I can go both ways.
You get the best of both worlds, Sharon.
Yeah, pretty much. So. I like reading about small towns. I don't always like writing about them. Although, I created a town in Michigan. Small.
I know, small towns. I grew up in Madison,
Yeah.
but I couldn't wait to get to the country and move there as fast as I could because I love horses. So and that's my brother, and my brother moved to Florida. My sister moved to California, and I stayed here. And I wouldn't change it for anything. I just love Wisconsin. I love a small town.
Well, and your formative years were in the city of Madison, right? Yeah. Her dad was mayor of Madison for a while.
Yeah.
Way back.
Long time. Yeah.
I mean, like for us, way back. Do we have more questions for Tracy, TK, aka Katie?
So I'm sorry. Is there a reason I noticed on your second book cover too? It's always like
Oh, that's
reason?
not necessarily.
Faces are hard to draw.
Faces are hard to do. And that's actually a picture from my backyard of me. And then I had
She owns that dress.
In that dress.
You might be able to find an Instagram shot of that dress.
Right now it's on my, I think it's pinned. Well, thank you for asking. Yeah, that was, I have that ball gown and I did that.
Because we all wear ball gowns in our backyards.
Yes.
I just like cheesy. Just it's okay. It's true. I want to know how close your neighbors are.
No.
I her name.
No.
Are you?
I'm her neighbor.
Okay. So do you think no,
She has a big backyard.
okay.
But
Yes.
if you go to her Instagram, is it the backyard model?
Yeah, the backyard model Instagram.
A lot, you'll find that photo of that. And she's facing the camera.
Yeah. I think so. Yeah.
But she does a lot of that, and a lot of wildlife, if you like wildlife.
Yeah, there's a lot of wildlife in her backyard.
Wildlife.
I'll,
Look at that.
for everybody, too, the Instagram, I'll put that up on our Books and Beer page on Facebook because her Instagram's super fun to follow.
It's books, inspiration, a little bit of fashion. I love wildlife and thrifted fashion. I love to thrift. So, and I go to an event twice a year called Divine Consign Resale, and there's one in Brookfield and Waukesha. And it's 4 days resale, and at the end, everything gets donated. That doesn't sell gets donated to women's organizations or
Nice.
Places that may need clothing donated. So it's just really fun, and so that's where I like to do a lot of my Instagram from those two places too.
Did you guys have a question? You look like you were being snarky over there. Yes, you. That's you.
I was just going to ask about editor. Have you been using the same editor, same publisher? I indie pub, so I do my own publishing, and I had an different editor for this, and then one for this, and both are wonderful ladies, fabulous editors, and
Everything's electronic, you send them, right, they just go to the website.
a lot of proofreading involved. You try to catch everything you can, but sometimes just with the layout and that, all of a sudden you'll see a typo that wasn't there.
Yeah. Now, isn't it funny? So you probably print out your manuscript on, 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper and probably see typos you don't see on the computer screen. But there's something weird that happens when you get it into the 2-page book format on it, like even if it's printed on an 8.5 by 11,
Yep.
like,
Yep.
the galley stage, if you will. And then you're like, the things just look different when it's in like real book form and you see the mistakes. and you're like, oh, how did I not see that? Like you've read it how many
I know.
times, you've edited it so many times, and then they pop out.
They pop out, and it's, you know, you do the best you can with it, and then even I've some top wonderful long-term bestseller writers when you buy their books, and I found little, you know, issues, and I just kind of have to accept it and move on. I have to try to catch as many as you can.
I think, I mean, I'm more of an astute reader now because I do so much more editing. But every time I get a new J.D. Robb book, that's Nora Roberts' police procedurals that I just love. In the ebook, I find one typo minimum, and it's usually something where a word is spelled correctly, but it somehow got flipped, like it got fixed to the wrong word.
Yeah.
It's something like that. It's not like a comma or whatever, but it's like something spell check won't catch because it's a real word. But it's and I'm like, well. See, it happens to people like that.
It does.
In the model ghost book, is there an actual ghost?
That's a very good question. I can't confirm or deny, although definitely there will be a haunting. Let's just put it that way.
Perfect for October.
I noticed I have this sticker on this water bottle. Ghosts never lie, but they don't stay quiet either.
Shannon Shurin, but I can't think of the name of the book. She's from like the East Coast of Wisconsin.
Well, I read somewhere that
Like-
Wisconsin, I think, is one of the most, if not the most, haunted state in the country.
We had another person from like Lake Mills or something area.
Yeah. Cat Falls that they wrote as Cat.
I was like
No.
the
Catafala. The creepy one, the one that made the stories made us get all like goosebumpy. And it was a Halloween.
like a Civil War guy.
Yes.
Kept showing
It
up.
was very bad ghosty stuff. We were all freaked out that night.
IRL in their real life at their house.
Yes.
Oh
yeah.
my goodness.
I don't know. October's a little strange around.
Here, right?
We are in an old
You
building.
ever heard of the Ridgeway Ghost? Ridgeway Ghost? Ridgeway, Wisconsin. It's on the way to Mineral Point. They have what's called the
There's a ghost in
Ridgeway
Ridgeway?
Ghost. Yeah. Ridgeway. Ridgeway Ghost.
Can
I
you
don't
see
know
it from the, can you see it from the road?
No, no.
Because I'm not getting out. I'm not getting out.
I don't know the legend. I just know that there's one.
Well, there are some really good ghost story books about Wisconsin. Like people have compiled the good ghost stories.
Well, I used to work in a place called the Walker House in Mineral Point.
Yes.
And it's a beautiful building on the, you know, down on the one side of town. And I worked there as a waitress in high school. And stone walls, little British pub, cozy spot, you know. And one night it was a quiet night, windy in the fall. There's only the cook in the kitchen and the other waitress and me. And we were sitting out in the dining room just talking away. And all of a sudden, the baseboard heat started to rattle.
Oh, it was.
Well, and I said, hush, we're trying to chat here. And that something went wild and started kicking the wall. Like, and then I don't know what it was. And she and I ran and
Across the parking lot, the tree was where the first hanging was.
yes.
Oh,
What was his name? Kathy. Yeah,
no.
that was his name. But that was the theory that that's who it was.
It's the hanging tree.
It was a hanging tree. I mean, everything really happened. I mean, it's really, yeah. So that was my only story. There were a lot of stories, but that was my only.
But it's like you're neither confirming nor denying whether there is a ghost in Model Ghost.
Right.
Okay. Well, I guess we're just gonna have to wait and buy the book in October. Right. Are there any questions? Go ahead.
Where do you get your characters?
That's a very, very good question.
The question-
Where do we get our characters? She was, you know, basically somebody who I imagined. I mean, I had a little tiny experience in modeling, and so she's a mix of people who I know in the industry, and she's got a lot of my mom in her, if you will. But then her cousin, you know, basically her alter ego, right? She's the foil against, you know, Mel is pretty straight and narrow, and then Lou is going to bring out all the kind of wackiness. And then her friend Steven is somebody who is probably a mix of men that I know. And then it's a lot of times it's who you encounter just through your life, I think, and you combine personalities, at least I do. And then I can sit in a room like that and stare at people and wonder about them and make up a character based on the librarian in Model Suspect is just somebody who I made up. But he definitely is somebody who I saw in a bookstore or a library for sure. Yeah. So it's just people you meet or may have a memory of.
Do people ask you if certain people are them or?
No, not yet. That's a secret I will not reveal.
But I think that's usually the case with most writers, I mean, unless you're writing a memoir or nonfiction, that you are melding together people that you know, or and you maybe are taking some of the more fantastical characteristics of certain people if you need that kind of character.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah. Which is what makes it fun. Which is also why, I mean, you're a people watcher when you're out and about. I mean, I love traveling for that reason. Like, I don't mind being at the airport early because people are insane when they travel.
Yeah,
There's a different level. You got the chill people, you know, because they travel all the time. Then you got the business guys, and then like every week they're going somewhere. You get the people with the little kids who are losing their minds because and then you've got the nervous people who are just like constantly checking the board because they're not 15th time you're at the right gate, honey. You are at the right gate, right? So I love it.
that's true.
I love traveling.
Yes.
I mean, I love going to cool places, but I love watching.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. And you can find writers always have so many ideas, and we always can find characters anywhere we look.
Yes.
I think that's a universal trait.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, if you were to like just do a writing prompt for a certain location, you could probably write like a page on like something fairly quickly, you know, just from memory of like, you know.
Well, one of my writing prompts when I was at Mount Mary getting my master's degree was, can you write a story about appliances, inanimate objects from the kitchen? And I was like, well, of course I can. I wrote a 2,000 word story.
I was thinking about like Chip and Mrs. Potts.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I did it. So we can pretty much make a story out of anything.
Yeah, actually, it would really be hard. I mean, my fridge is making a weird noise right now. So back to the ghosts.
Right.
New house, new fridge. New ghosts. But yeah, it's kind of fun.
Yeah.
I'm guessing, you know, did you always write story? Like even when you were younger, that just didn't go anywhere. And then was it just as you got older that you wrote full length?
Yes, horses, just horse stories. That's right. You know, anything I could write about a horse, read about a horse, you know, draw a horse. It was all that.
Are you the youngest?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I am too. I just feel like the youngest in the family have to be a storyteller to get any attention.
Yes, that's true. Yes,
That's right.
The oldest kids are the most successful because they get the most attention. And
Yes.
of course.
Yes.
And once they have one successful kid, then they forget about it.
Yeah, do whatever you want.
That's true. I mean, I got away with everything because my parents were just dumb. I mean, there were 6 of them.
Yeah, I was going to say you had a large family.
Yeah. Oh, I'm in trouble. I'm in trouble now because, you know. Do we have more questions tonight? If anybody needs other copies of Model Suspect, we've got those for sale tonight. They're $15. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.